Hello, is this the police? I need your help right away. Something urgent has come up. On what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, my wedding day, I was involved in an accident. My long-awaited marriage to Chase, the man I love, was completely derailed. I'd been looking forward to that day for months, but instead of celebrating, I ended up in the hospital. Thankfully, the accident wasn't severe, but I had to stay for a medical checkup, which led to the wedding being cancelled. I was devastated and furious, especially because the other driver blamed me and even demanded money. While at the hospital, preparing to file a report, I reviewed the dash cam footage. That's when I overheard something that shook me to my core, a conversation between Chase and his mother, Marissa. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I immediately brought it to the attention of the police. My name is Frederica, and I'm 30 years old. I work in an office. Nothing too exciting. I met Chase 3 years ago at a bar I frequented with my coworker, Alicia. Normally, I'm pretty reserved and don't talk much to strangers, but that night was different. I'd had too much to drink, and by the time Chase, who was sitting next to me, struck up a conversation, I was too tipsy to feel shy. We ended up spending the entire night drinking with Alicia and the bartender, David. By the time the sun came up, it felt like we'd been friends for ages. We exchanged numbers, and soon after, we started hanging out regularly. It wasn't long before I became a regular at the bar. Alicia and I would stop by after work, and soon enough, Chase became a fixture in my life. We'd go on trips, have barbecues, and it was like reliving my carefree college days, spending so much time with him. I started falling for Chase. Sure, he could be a bit rough around the edges, but his sharp wit and sense of humor always kept us entertained, and whenever we made plans, Chase was the one organizing everything: hotels, transportation, you name it. It didn't take long for me to fall for him. But I wasn't sure how Chase felt about me. I didn't want to risk ruining our friendship, so I kept my feelings to myself. Not even Alicia knew. We continued hanging out as usual for months, until one night when everything changed. We were all out drinking when Alicia, ever the blunt one, announced, "Frederica and Chase should just date already. It's obvious you two have feelings for each other." I was mortified. I had no idea Chase felt that way about me, but to my surprise, he just laughed and said, "I like you, Frederica. Do you want to go out with me?" And reached for my hand, overwhelmed. I nodded and took his hand, tears welling up in my eyes. "Oh no, Frederica's crying," Alicia teased as everyone laughed, and just like that, Chase and I became a couple. After that, the four of us didn't hang out as much. I spent more time with Chase, and every day with him was pure happiness. We traveled, made memories, and life was good. But around the time of our third anniversary, things started to change. Alicia and David had just gotten engaged, and I was overjoyed for them. We were planning to celebrate over drinks, but Chase canceled at the last minute, saying he had to work late. I waited up for him, but he never came. The next day, I confronted him. "I waited for you last night. It was a celebration. You could have at least shown up." But something in him had shifted, and I wasn't sure why. "It's work. There's nothing I can do about it. I've sent my congratulations," Chase replied coldly. As his words sank in, I began to ponder my future with him. I loved Chase, and despite his recent distance, I held on to the hope that he could still be the funny, reliable man I had fallen for. Perhaps this was just a rough patch, but with my 30th birthday looming, I couldn't help but wonder if it might be better to end things rather than remain in a stagnant relationship. A few months later, to my surprise, Chase's demeanor shifted back to kindness. Maybe it was just a phase after all, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "I think we've both been going through a tough time. How about we plan a trip for the upcoming long weekend?" I suggested. His face lit up with agreement. "Definitely, it's getting cold, so let's go skiing," he replied enthusiastically. We quickly settled on a destination, and true to form, Chase took care of all the arrangements, accommodations and transportation, just like he had during our first trip together. The gesture brought back fond memories, and I found myself eagerly anticipating our getaway. On the day of our trip, we checked into our hotel and spent the day sightseeing. I laughed and relaxed with Chase, rediscovering just how much I loved him. That night, as we shared drinks and reminisced about our journey together, I felt a sense of contentment wash over me. "Life has been so much fun since I met you, Chase," I thought, smiling inwardly. Then, in a moment I would treasure forever, he reached for my hand and asked, "Frederica, I want to create even more memories with you. Will you marry me?" Without hesitation, I took his hand, my heart racing with joy. It felt just like when we first started dating, and we both knew this was the right decision. The thought of our future together filled me with happiness. Once we decided to marry, the whirlwind of wedding preparations began. There was so much to do, and it kept us busy. Chase was incredibly supportive, often staying up late with me as we discussed and finalized details over drinks. I learned more about his family during this time. His father had passed away when Chase was in elementary school, and his mother, Marissa, was lively and full of humor, much like him. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. During our conversations, Marissa never made eye contact with me, even while discussing our wedding plans. She and Chase seemed to be engrossed in their own world, leaving me on the sidelines, laughing awkwardly. I hoped it was just shyness and that we could gradually build a good relationship. I thought I'd spend the day before the wedding with Chase after we dropped off our luggage and had a quick meeting, but as we drove home, he said, "I'm staying at my parents' house tonight. See you tomorrow." "Wait, aren't we supposed to spend the day together?" I asked, confused. "No, we'll live together from tomorrow. Today, I need to be with my family," he explained. Chase had been so involved in the wedding plans, yet he had spent the last few days at his parents' house. The night before, I had to prepare everything alone before picking him up for our meeting. I hadn't expected him to go back again that night, but he decided to take a taxi to his parents'. I felt a twinge of annoyance, but I reminded myself that tomorrow we would be together forever. Filial duty was important, and I resolved to stay positive just for today. That night, as I relaxed in a half-bath, I flipped through photos capturing our memories together. I felt nervous but excited, drifting off to sleep, imagining our wedding guests enjoying the celebration. I dreamed about the big day. On the morning of the wedding, I awoke to Chase's phone call, alarmed that I had overslept. I checked the time, it was still earlier than I had planned to get up. "What's going on so early?" I asked, trying to shake off the sleep. "Frederica, I forgot the shoes I'm supposed to wear today. I thought I brought them over, but they're still in the car. Can you bring them to me?" he said, sounding rushed. I hesitated, realizing I wouldn't be able to drive due to the alcohol from last night. "What? I can't drive today. I'll just take a taxi." "No, my mom is driving back home. She doesn't drink, so it's all arranged," he assured me. Half awake and not wanting to argue, I replied, "All right, talk to you later." The wedding venue was about a 20-minute drive away. I occasionally drove, so I figured if Marissa was taking the car, I wouldn't have to worry about the return trip. With Chase seeming in a hurry, I reluctantly moved forward with my preparations, double-checking everything he might have forgotten. To avoid traffic, I left a bit earlier than planned. Today was a significant day for both of us. I drove with extra caution on the way to the wedding venue. Just a short distance away, a car beside me abruptly swerved into my lane. Startled, I slammed on the brakes, but before I knew it, I collided with the other vehicle. I had never been in an accident before, and the shock left me dazed. I could barely register the moment of impact. All I could feel was an overwhelming jolt coursing through my body. Pain washed over me, but at least I was conscious. The other driver, a young man, shouted, "Hey, that was reckless. I'm going to demand compensation." I thought to myself, who was really being reckless here? I didn't have the energy to argue. He didn't seem injured, but I managed to say, "Please call the police." He appeared to comply, and soon both the police and an ambulance arrived. I felt tears streaming down my face as I overheard him telling the officers it was my fault. Realizing I needed evidence, I mustered my strength to retrieve the SD card from the dash cam and tucked it into my pocket. "I have a wedding to attend later today," I repeated to the paramedics, though everything after that moment became a blur. The next thing I knew, I found myself lying on a hospital bed. "Frederica, are you okay?" I heard Chase's familiar voice as I opened my eyes. "Yeah, I'm okay. What about the wedding?" I asked, panic rising in my chest. "It's been called off. You've been in an accident. We can always reschedule," he said matter-of-factly. In that instant, I broke down in tears. "It's okay not to have the wedding today. Your health is the most important thing. You'll need to stay here for a few days for tests," he reassured me. Yet his calmness about the cancelled wedding troubled me. Did he really not care? I had broken a rib and sustained bruises, but because of my head injury, further tests were necessary. After Chase left, my friend Alicia called. "Frederica, are you alright?" I heard from Chase. "If you need anything, I can bring it to you," she offered. "Alicia, thank you. I'm a bit sore, but I'm okay. Could you bring my laptop?" I asked, suddenly eager to check the dash cam footage. "Your laptop? Sure, I'll be right there," Alicia replied, surprised but willing to help. Living nearby, Alicia and her husband arrived within 20 minutes. "Frederica, I'm so relieved you're safe," Alicia said, pulling me into a tight hug, tears streaming down her face. Seeing her distress made me cry as well. I felt grateful to have friends who cared about me, but it only highlighted Chase's unsettling calmness. "Here's your laptop," Alicia said, handing it over. I quickly pulled out the SD card and played the footage. The accident had been recorded in clear detail. "What is this? This is insane," Alicia exclaimed, her anger growing. "That guy is blaming me for the accident. I need to show this to the police," I explained. We discussed the incident and the wedding cancellation. Though I felt disheartened, talking with Alicia and David helped ease my spirits. But as the video played on, an unbelievable conversation between Chase and Marissa began to unfold. It was from the day before the wedding. "This is where my junior is going to ram into us. I told him to really go for it, so it should be fine," Chase said, sounding almost gleeful. "Chase, clever. This means we're getting money, right?" Marissa replied. "Yeah, she's got plenty from her parents' inheritance. Did you check how much?" Chase asked. The light-hearted atmosphere shifted dramatically in an instant. "No, I can't listen to this anymore," Alicia said in a panic, stopping the video. Was the accident planned? I felt a wave of dread wash over me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "We need to call the police," Alicia urged, and I reported everything to the authorities. "Is Chase the type to do something like this?" Alicia asked her husband, David, as we waited for the police. "No, we only know him as a bartender and customer. I don't know anything about his personal life," David replied, shrugging. While we had spent a lot of time together, none of us really knew Chase's background. Even in our relationship, he rarely opened up about himself. Minutes later, the police arrived, and I showed them the footage. I explained the circumstances of the accident and requested a thorough investigation. The officers took the SD card with them for evidence. After they left, Chase entered my hospital room, casually carrying a bag. "Hey, Alicia's here too, Frederica." "That's good, I brought your things," he said nonchalantly. "Take your things and get out. I don't want to see your face again. I'm calling off the wedding. This is an engagement breakup," I shouted, my voice trembling with emotion. "What, are you emotionally unstable because of the accident?" Chase looked genuinely perplexed. Before I could respond, Alicia quickly intervened. "It seems she's really shaken up from the accident. She's been like this for a while. Could you give her some space today? We'll talk later." "Fine, I'll leave for now. Let's talk once things settle down," Chase agreed, exiting the room without hesitation. I wanted to confront him, to demand an explanation for his conversation with Marissa, and to hope he would deny it, but the police had advised me not to engage with Chase for now, as it could interfere with their investigation. Overwhelmed by emotion, I broke down in tears, and Alicia stepped in to comfort me. Afterward, I explained my situation to the hospital staff, arranged for a room change, and ensured that Chase would not be allowed to visit. Concerned about my mental state, Alicia dedicated long hours to being with me, though I was still in shock. Her presence provided a sense of solace. On the morning of my discharge, the police called with shocking news. Chase, Marissa, and the driver from the accident had been arrested. A wave of conflicting emotions surged through me, and I found myself crying alongside Alicia as she came to pick me up. According to the police, Chase and Marissa had targeted my inheritance, which I had received after my parents' tragic accident 4 years ago. Since I had no siblings, all of it had come to me. The grief had been so profound that I hadn't fully recovered for an entire year. It was Alicia who had helped me gradually come back to life. Although the inheritance was considerable, I had never touched it. I had only mentioned it drunkenly once while we were out together. Initially, while Chase may have been interested in my inheritance, he had genuinely cared for me and had even considered marrying me. However, as time went on, his affection dwindled, and he seemed intent on breaking up, but doing so would mean losing access to my inheritance. Chase had lived a flashy lifestyle in his youth, and the driver involved in the accident, Eric, was one of his junior friends. They had previously been caught in a similar scam involving a staged accident, but it had been dismissed due to lack of evidence. Now, they had concocted the same scheme for our wedding day, planning to severely injure me to prevent the marriage, leading to a breakup where they would pressure me for my inheritance and seek compensation. The thought that they had even planned to fabricate evidence of infidelity to claim alimony if our engagement ended was terrifying. The one mistake Chase made was forgetting to remove the SD card from the dash cam. Their original plan had included disposing of it. Hearing all of this brought me relief, especially knowing we hadn't submitted the marriage registration yet. While my injuries were minor, the severity of the crime meant that Chase would likely be imprisoned for a long time. After my discharge, I stayed with Alicia and her husband until I fully recovered. "Frederica, let's go out for steak today," Alicia suggested. I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for her. Normally, the shock of such an event would have been too much to bear, but with her support, I began to enjoy life again. Together, we visited my parents' grave, where I expressed my thanks for the strong body and wonderful friends they had given me. I prayed for them and offered my gratitude. I hadn't touched my inheritance yet. My injuries were healing significantly, and I planned to start living independently near Alicia's home soon.